A woman should always hide three things from everyone. These words may seem simple, but they carry weights: spiritual weight, emotional weight, and the weight of wisdom shaped by life's trials and God's truth. In a world that constantly demands openness, transparency, and the sharing of everything, there is still power, holy power, in sacred silence. There is still strength in the hidden places of a woman's soul. There is a beauty that doesn't need to be broadcast, a faith that doesn't need applause, and a dignity that shines best in quiet strength. First, a woman should hide her pain, not because she should suffer alone, but because there is a strength in surrendering that pain to God before the world ever sees it. The world may misjudge it, may mock it, may use it to define her. But God, oh God, He understands every tear before it falls, every sigh before it's spoken. When you hide your pain in the presence of God, it becomes the soil for your growth. It becomes the place where beauty is born, not in front of the crowd, but in the presence of the Creator. The world says, "Tell us everything." But God says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So let her hide her pain, not in pride, but in prayer. Second, a woman should hide her plans, not because she fears failure, but because vision grows best in quiet. This world is loud, filled with noise and opinions, but the dreams God places in your heart are sacred, and sacred things are not thrown to swine. Sacred things are not up for public debate. Let her pray, let her plan, let her prepare in the stillness, in the silence, in the secret place where God speaks. You don't need the approval of people to walk in the calling God has placed on your life. Let her hide her plans, not in secrecy, but in stewardship. And third, a woman should hide her power, yes, her power, because real power doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention. Real power walks softly, but leaves a mark. A godly woman knows when to speak and when to be silent. She knows when to act and when to wait. She knows that power submitted to God becomes unstoppable. The world teaches women to show everything, prove everything, flaunt everything. But God teaches a woman to walk in quiet confidence, rooted in who she is, not in the eyes of man, but in the eyes of her Maker. Let her hide her power, not in fear, but in faith. So remember this, in a world that tells a woman to reveal all, there is wisdom in what is kept sacred. There is strength in what is surrendered to God. There is holiness in what is hidden in His hands. Her pain, her plans, her power, when hidden in God, become the tools He uses to shape not just her life, but the lives of those around her. That kind of woman is not just strong, she is unshakable, she is a light in the dark, she is a force for good, and the world doesn't need more noise, it needs more of her kind. A woman's pain is one of the most sacred things she carries. It is not weakness, it is not shame, it is the place where her humanity and her faith meet. Pain, though uncomfortable, is often the very tool God uses to mold us, refine us, and draw us closer to Him. But in today's world, there is a constant pressure to share everything, to be open, to be transparent, to let everyone know what we are going through. There is this idea that healing requires exposure, that if you don't speak about it loudly, you're hiding or being dishonest. But that's not always true. Sometimes the deepest healing happens not in public, but in private. And sometimes the strongest women are the ones who fall on their knees in the silence of the night and cry out to God with no one watching. That kind of surrender is more powerful than any public declaration. A woman should hide her pain not because she is weak, but because she understands that her strength comes from the one who sees her even when the world does not. There is something holy about the hidden place, something sacred about taking your burdens to God before anyone else. When a woman hides her pain in prayer, she is saying, "Lord, you are my first response, not my last resort." She chooses to bleed before the cross instead of the crowd. She understands that God is not just a healer, He is her asterisk healer. And He is not moved by noise, He is moved by faith. The Bible tells us that God collects every tear in a bottle. That means every silent cry, every sleepless night, every aching moment matters to Him. Not a single drop is wasted. When she hides her pain in prayer, she doesn't deny it. She entrusts it. She gives it to the only one who truly understands, because even the people who love you most may not fully grasp your sorrow. They may give advice, they may sympathize, but only God sees the whole picture. Only God knows how to turn mourning into dancing. Only God can take ashes and make something beautiful. Hiding pain in prayer is not the same as bottling it up. It's not suppression, it's submission. There's a difference. Bottling up pain hardens the heart, but laying it before God softens the soul. When a woman pours out her pain to her Creator, she finds a peace that surpasses understanding. The world may not see the battle she fights, but heaven knows. And while others are waiting to see her fall apart, God is quietly putting her back together. That kind of restoration doesn't need a stage. It needs a prayer closet. It needs a humble heart that says, I can't do this alone. And that is where true strength is born, in admitting our weakness to the one who is strong. We live in a time where people share their every emotion on social media. Heartbreak becomes a post. Pain becomes a status. But some things are too deep, too personal, too spiritual to be shared with the world. Some things are meant only for God's ears. Because when you speak your pain to the wrong people, it can be misused. It can be misunderstood. It can be mishandled. But when you give it to God, it is safe, it is honored, it is redeemed. A woman who hides her pain in prayer is not running away from it. She is choosing the higher path. She is saying, I don't need validation from people. I need healing from God. And that makes her unshakable. God often does his best work in the hidden places. Think of the seed in the soil. It is buried. It is covered. It is unseen. But in that dark place, life begins, growth begins, transformation begins. A woman who hides her pain in the presence of God is like that seed. She may look quiet, she may look still, but underneath God is working, God is strengthening, God is preparing her for something greater. And when she rises, when she blooms, it won't be because she shouted her pain for all to hear. It will be because she surrendered it to the only one who could carry it. So yes, a woman should hide her pain, not in pride, but in prayer. Not because she wants to suffer in silence, but because she wants to be restored in the right place. There is no shame in quiet strength. There is no weakness in holy surrender. In fact, that is where the most powerful women are born. In the quiet moments of deep, honest prayer. The world may never know what she's been through, but when she walks, she will walk in victory. Not because she avoided pain, but because she gave it to the one who turns pain into purpose. A woman should always hide her plans, not because she is afraid to pursue them, but because there is wisdom in building quietly. In today's world, everyone is encouraged to announce their goals, to share their dreams, and to declare their next move. But some of the most powerful things God does in a person's life happen in silence. When a woman receives a vision from God, it is sacred. It is not something to be thrown into the open too soon. There is a season for planting, a season for watering, and a season for harvest. But the planting season is always quiet. No one sees the seed in the soil, and yet that is where life begins. In the same way, when a woman hides her plans in the secret place with God, she is not hiding out of fear. She is hiding out of reverence for the process. She knows that everything great begins in the dark, in silence, in prayer. Too often, we feel the need to tell others what we're about to do so we can feel supported or validated. But the danger is that when you speak too soon, you open the door to doubt, distraction, and discouragement. People may not understand the calling God has placed on your life. They may question your timing, your ability, or even your motive. And if you listen too much to them, their voices can become louder than God's. But a wise woman knows that the best place to birth a dream is not in the public eye, it's in the secret place, where only God sees, where only God hears, where only God speaks. When she hides her plans, she is giving God full control to shape them without interference. She is saying, Lord, your voice is enough, your approval is enough, your timing is enough. There is a strength in silence, there is power in patience. When a woman learns to wait on God without needing applause or attention, she becomes unstoppable. The enemy cannot attack what he cannot see, and people cannot destroy what they do not know exists. When your plans are hidden, they are protected. And while others may seem loud and bold with their ambitions, the woman who builds quietly is not behind. She is being prepared. She is learning, growing, refining, and aligning her spirit with God's will. And when the time is right, she will move, not with noise, but with power, not with announcement, but with authority. Even Jesus, the Son of God, spent 30 years in quiet preparation before 3 years of public ministry. He didn't rush, he didn't boast, he didn't seek attention. He waited until the appointed time. And in that waiting there was power. In that silence there was alignment with the Father. If the Son of God could wait, surely we can too. A woman who hides her plans is not being secretive. She is being spiritual. She is not seeking to impress people. She is seeking to obey God, and obedience often requires silence, because faith isn't loud. Faith is consistent. Faith keeps working when no one's watching. Faith keeps praying when there's no confirmation. Faith keeps moving forward even when the world is unaware. Sometimes the dream God gives you is so big, so bold, so beyond your ability, that it scares even you. And if you speak it too soon, others may crush it before it has time to grow. That's why God sometimes tells us to be still, not because we're not ready to move, but because the vision is still taking shape. A woman of wisdom doesn't rush to explain herself. She lets the fruit of her obedience speak in time. She doesn't need to prove anything. She lets God's favor do the talking, and that kind of trust, that kind of quiet strength is rare. But it is powerful. There will be a time to speak. There will be a time to share. But don't confuse timing with urgency. What's urgent to you is not always timely in God's plan. Wait until the foundation is strong. Wait until the roots are deep. Wait until your heart is fully surrendered. Then, when you move, no one can stop you, because you didn't build on approval. You built on faith. You didn't speak to be seen. You prayed to be led. And the woman who builds in silence will one day stand in victory, not because she told everyone what she was going to do, but because she trusted the one who told her to do it. So yes, a woman should hide her plans. Not in fear, but in faith. Not to keep others out, but to keep God in. Because when God is at the center, and his timing is trusted, every plan will bloom exactly when it's meant to. And no one will be able to deny that it was his hand guiding it all along. A woman should always hide her power, not because she lacks it, but because real power doesn't need to announce itself. In today's world, we are told that strength must be loud, that confidence must be bold, and that power must be constantly displayed. But a truly powerful woman knows the value of restraint. She understands that power is not something to be proven, but something to be lived. There is a quiet kind of strength that moves without noise, that impacts without shouting, and that influences without demanding attention. It is this hidden power that changes lives, because it is rooted in humility, guided by wisdom, and grounded in the presence of God. A woman who hides her power knows who she is, and more importantly, she knows who she is. There is something dangerous about a woman who walks with quiet confidence. She doesn't need to raise her voice because her presence speaks for her. She doesn't need to control others because she is already in control of herself. She doesn't need to win every argument because she chooses peace over pride. That's power, not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself. And the woman who learns to do that becomes unshakable. Her strength is not in her volume, but in her virtue. Her influence is not in her status, but in her spirit. She has learned that when God is her defender, she doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. The world teaches that power comes from position, possessions, or popularity, but a woman of God knows that true power comes from a heart that is surrendered to the will of the Father. Her power isn't man-made, it's heaven-given. It's the power to love when it's easier to hate. It's the power to forgive when others would hold a grudge. It's the power to endure trials with grace and to walk through fire without the smell of smoke. And because her power is hidden in God, the world cannot steal it, break it, or control it. She doesn't flaunt it because she doesn't need to. Her power is not for display, it's for purpose. When a woman hides her power, she is not being weak. She is being wise. She understands that timing is everything. Not every moment is the right moment to speak. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every platform is worth standing on. She picks her moments carefully, and when she speaks, people listen. When she acts, things shift, because she doesn't waste her strength trying to prove herself to people who aren't even qualified to judge her. She keeps her power close, like a precious treasure, and reveals it only when led by the Spirit. That kind of discernment is rare, and it is rooted in a deep relationship with God. There is a kind of beauty in mystery and a kind of strength in silence. A woman who hides her power doesn't need validation because she already has vision. She's not trying to impress others because she's already aligned with her purpose. She knows that the most powerful women are often the ones least noticed. Until their impact is felt, you won't always see her coming, but you'll know she was there. Her presence leaves an impression, not because she was loud, but because she was intentional. Every step she takes is ordered. Every word she speaks is measured. Every move she makes is guided by faith, not fear. The enemy fears a woman who knows her power, but chooses to use it with wisdom, because she cannot be manipulated. She cannot be distracted. She cannot be swayed by public opinion. She is anchored in something deeper. She doesn't respond to pressure. She responds to purpose. And when she moves with the authority of heaven backing her. That's why she doesn't need to compete or compare. She already knows her lane. She runs her race, and she runs it well, with grace and with fire. This world is noisy. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, noticed. But the woman who hides her power understands that the greatest influence often comes from those who don't seek it. They simply live it, and by living it, they lead. Her strength is in her stillness. Her power is in her prayer. Her influence is in her integrity. She is not interested in being famous. She's interested in being faithful. And that kind of power doesn't fade. It lasts. It leaves a legacy. So yes, a woman should hide her power, not in shame, but in strength. Not to hold it back, but to use it wisely. Because when power is submitted to God, it becomes a force for good. And when a woman walks in that kind of power, quiet, steady, unshakable, she doesn't just change her own life, she changes everything around her. A woman should always hide her confidence, not because she lacks it, but because she knows that true confidence doesn't come from the opinions of others. It comes from the one who created her. In a world that constantly demands validation, that tells women they must be seen, praised, and applauded to feel worthy, it takes real strength to stand firm in quiet confidence. The kind of confidence that isn't loud, but deeply rooted. The kind that doesn't beg for attention, but quietly shines in character and conviction. A woman who hides her confidence is not insecure. She is secure in something deeper, something unshakable. She knows that applause fades, popularity shifts, and public opinion changes like the wind. But when your confidence is hidden in Christ, it never moves. It remains steady through storms, through rejection, through criticism, and even through seasons of silence. When a woman chooses to draw her worth from God and not the crowd, she becomes untouchable. Because the world can't take away what it didn't give her, she's not swayed by likes, follows, or affirmations. She doesn't need a platform to feel valuable. She walks with purpose, not because someone told her she could, but because God called her to. Her confidence isn't based on compliments. It's built in private, on her knees in prayer, in surrender, in obedience. There, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, she is shaped. She is reminded of who she is, chosen, beloved, strong, and made for more. And when she walks into a room, she doesn't need to announce it. Her confidence is not in what she wears or how loud she is, but in who she is becoming in Christ. There is danger in putting your confidence in the hands of people. Because people can be inconsistent. One moment they praise you, the next they doubt you. They celebrate your success today, but question your journey tomorrow. And if your identity is tied to their approval, you will constantly feel unstable, constantly trying to prove yourself, constantly chasing affirmation that never satisfies. But a woman who hides her confidence in God is free from that chase. She's not trying to impress anyone. She's not competing for attention. She's simply walking in her calling with grace and humility, and that is powerful, because in that space she no longer performs, she lives. She no longer needs to explain herself. She trusts that God will reveal what he is doing in his time. Confidence that is hidden in Christ is not arrogance. It is humility in its strongest form. It says, I know who I am, but I also know who he is. That balance is rare. Many people believe confidence means being loud, dominant, and always in control. But real confidence is quiet. It listens more than it speaks. It serves more than it demands. It leads not from a desire to be seen, but from a heart to make a difference. A woman who hides her confidence is a woman who has nothing to prove and everything to offer. She is content in herself. She doesn't need to outshine anyone. Her light is enough. Her journey is enough. Her presence is enough, and it's not that she never doubts or faces insecurity. She's human. She has moments of fear, of second guessing, of wondering if she's enough. But instead of seeking instant reassurance from others, she brings those doubts to God. She lets him remind her of her value. She lets him speak truth into the lies. She lets him strengthen her heart. And that inner dialogue with God becomes the source of her strength. That's why she can smile in the face of opposition. That's why she can keep going when doors close. That's why she can stand when others fall. Because her foundation is solid. Her confidence is built on the rock, not on the sand. There is wisdom in hiding your confidence. Not so it can be buried, but so it can be protected and preserved until its time. When God develops something in you, it's often in the hidden place. That's where he refines it. That's where he tests it. And that's where he strengthens it so it can stand in the open. When a woman hides her confidence in God, she learns to trust his process. She doesn't rush to prove herself. She doesn't force open doors. She knows that when the time is right, her confidence will not just be seen. It will be undeniable because it was built by God himself. So yes, a woman should hide her confidence, not in fear, but in faith. Not because she's unsure, but because she's secure. She's not afraid to shine, but she knows her light doesn't come from public praise. It comes from private obedience. And when a woman walks with that kind of confidence, she doesn't just change her path. She becomes a light for others to follow. She shows that confidence rooted in Christ is the kind of strength that can never be shaken. A woman should always hide her pain, not to suppress it or deny its existence, but because there is a sacred strength in choosing where and how that pain is shared. In a world that often demands vulnerability on display, where people are quick to broadcast every wound, disappointment, and heartbreak for public consumption, a wise woman knows that not everyone deserves access to her suffering. Pain is deeply personal. It is tied to our growth, to our relationship with God, and to the refining of our character. When a woman chooses to hide her pain, she is not pretending to be unhurt. She is choosing to heal in a space that is protected, quiet, and sacred. She knows that healing happens most powerfully in the hands of God, not under the scrutiny of the world. Pain is inevitable. Life will bring betrayal, loss, rejection, and sorrow. But what separates a woman of strength is not that she never experiences pain, it's how she handles it. Some will use pain as a tool for attention. They will broadcast their wounds to gain sympathy or validation. But a woman who hides her pain understands that her story is too valuable to be cheapened by public opinion. She knows that her tears are seen by God, and that is enough. She doesn't need everyone to understand her process. She doesn't owe the world an explanation for her silence, because sometimes silence is the holiest place of healing. Sometimes the quiet is where God speaks the loudest. There is a difference between hiding pain and being in denial. Denial runs from pain, but wisdom knows when to protect it. A woman who hides her pain is not afraid of it. She honors it. She carries it with grace, even when it weighs heavy. She walks with dignity, even when her heart is breaking. She smiles, not because everything is perfect, but because she knows that joy is deeper than circumstance. Her pain has not stolen her identity. In fact, it has deepened her faith, sharpened her vision, and humbled her spirit. And through it all, she refuses to be defined by what hurt her. She refuses to let pain become her platform. Instead, she lets it become her altar, where she lays it all down before God. Sometimes pain teaches more than peace ever could. It reveals who you are. It reveals who your true friends are. It reveals where your faith stands. And most importantly, it reveals how close you are willing to draw near to God. A woman who hides her pain knows that God is her refuge. She knows that in her weakest moments, He is her strength. When the world sees her standing tall, they may never know the nights she cried herself to sleep, the prayers she whispered with trembling hands, or the times she almost gave up. But she didn't give up. And that's where her strength lies. not in avoiding pain, but in enduring it with quiet courage. The world teaches that expression equals strength, but sometimes discretion is greater strength. Not everyone who listens deserves to hear your heart. Not every space is safe, and when you give your pain to the wrong people, it can be mishandled, misunderstood, or magnified. A wise woman chooses her confidants carefully. Sometimes her only confidant is God. And that's more than enough, because he doesn't just listen. He heals, he restores, he brings beauty from ashes. When a woman hides her pain in him, she is not hiding in weakness. She is hiding in strength. She is allowing God to do a deep work, unseen by the world, but deeply transformative. There is also beauty in a woman who turns her pain into compassion. Because she has walked through the fire, she can walk with others who are hurting. She may not speak of her suffering often, but when she does, it comes with wisdom, empathy, and grace. Her words carry weight because they were forged in the furnace of affliction. And when she chooses to reveal her pain, it's not for pity, it's to lift others. It's to say, I've been there, and you will survive this too. But she shares only when led by love, not by a need to be seen. Pain has a purpose. It humbles, it molds, and it refines. A woman who hides her pain trusts that God is using it all for good. She doesn't waste time trying to make everyone understand. She invests her energy into healing, into prayer, into becoming the woman God is shaping her to be. And one day, when she stands in the fullness of joy, when her story becomes a testimony of triumph, people will wonder how she made it. They may never know the depths of her sorrow, but they will see the strength in her stride and the fire in her spirit. Because she didn't let her pain destroy her, she let it develop her. So yes, a woman should hide her pain. Not in fear, but in faith. Not to pretend, but to protect. Because pain, when placed in the hands of God, becomes power, and the woman who hides her pain in his presence walks through life not with bitterness, but with beauty, not with despair, but with quiet determination. And that is a strength the world cannot understand, but it is a strength that changes everything. A woman should always hide her next move, not because she is being secretive, but because there is divine wisdom in moving silently. In a world that is loud, where everyone is eager to share their plans, dreams, goals, and intentions with the public, there is something incredibly powerful about a woman who walks in silence. She doesn't announce what she's about to do. She doesn't seek approval before she begins. She simply moves when it's time, directed by God, protected by wisdom, and covered in grace. She understands that not everyone clapping for her is cheering for her, and not every audience is a safe place. So she keeps her next move between herself and God until it's already done. There is power in silence. There is strategy in discretion. When a woman guards her next move, she guards her peace. She protects her purpose from premature exposure. She understands that the enemy cannot attack what he doesn't know. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing a woman can do is to stay quiet while God prepares the path ahead. Silence is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is clarity in motion. It is trust in action. When you hide your next step, you are telling God, I trust you to bring this forth in the right time, in the right way, and before the right people. You're not hiding out of fear. You're hiding out of faith. A woman who hides her next move is not operating in deception. She's operating in discernment. She knows that speaking too soon can draw the wrong attention, that revealing too much too early can invite unnecessary warfare, jealousy, or confusion. And so she waits, she plans, she works, she prays, all in silence, not to impress, but to progress. She's not interested in impressing people with plans. She's focused on the results. When it's done, they'll see it. When it's finished, they'll know it. But right now, she's in the building phase, and builders don't need applause. They need focus. In the quiet space where no one is watching, that's where real transformation happens. That's where the vision becomes clear. That's where God aligns the details and opens doors that no one can shut. When a woman keeps her next move hidden, she is not delaying her destiny. She is protecting it. There are dreams that need to grow in the dark before they can shine in the light. Seeds don't grow when they're constantly being dug up and exposed. They grow when they're hidden, watered, and nurtured. And the same is true for a woman's purpose. Her silence is not a delay. It's development. We live in a culture that pressures us to share everything, to post every win, to speak every plan, to announce every goal. But a wise woman knows that privacy is protection. She knows that silence is sacred, that some things are too holy to be shared prematurely. So she resists the urge to speak and chooses instead to build. Not in pride, but in humility, not in fear, but in faith. She doesn't need to prove herself. She just needs to stay in alignment with God. And when the time is right, the move will be seen, the fruit will speak, and the results will testify. Sometimes the enemy uses your words against you. He hears your plans and tries to place obstacles in your path. But when you move in silence, you stay ahead. You move wisely, prayerfully, strategically. And you leave no open doors for confusion, competition, or sabotage. A woman who hides her next move is a woman who has learned to listen more than she speaks. She values peace over popularity, purpose over performance, growth over gossip, and because of that, her journey may look quiet, but it is powerful, it is covered, it is blessed. Let people underestimate you. Let them assume you've stopped. Let them believe you've stepped back. While they are watching your past, you're building your future. And when it's time, your move will speak louder than any announcement could. Your life will reveal what you are building in the silence. And by then, it will be too late for the enemy to stop it. There is wisdom in not exposing the promise before it's matured. There is strength in waiting until God says now. A woman who hides her next move is not idle. She is intentional. She is moving, working, growing, aligning, and trusting. And in that sacred silence, God is moving on her behalf. He is going before her, making the crooked paths straight. He is preparing the right hearts, aligning the right opportunities, and strengthening her spirit. So when the move is finally made, it won't just be a step forward. It will be a divine launch into the destiny she was designed for. So yes, a woman should always hide her next move. Not because she's hiding from the world, but because she's walking with God. Because when you walk with God, you don't need to announce your steps. You just need to take them, one by one, in obedience, in faith, in silence. And when the time comes, the world will see the fruit of everything God was doing behind the scenes. And that will speak louder than words ever could. A woman should always hide her weaknesses, not because she's pretending to be perfect, but because not everyone deserves access to the most fragile parts of her soul. In a world that is quick to judge, quick to take advantage, and often slow to understand, a woman must be discerning about who she allows to see her vulnerable moments. Her weaknesses are not signs of failure. They are parts of her humanity. They are areas that God is still working on, places of growth, of learning, of surrender. But they are not to be displayed carelessly, because when weakness is shared with the wrong person, it can be weaponized. When shown too openly, it can invite voices of discouragement instead of compassion. A wise woman hides her weaknesses, not to deceive others, but to preserve the sacred work that God is doing within her. There is a deep strength in knowing your weakness and still walking boldly. It is not about ignoring your flaws. It's about choosing where they are safe to be revealed. Not every relationship is trustworthy. Not every listener is a helper. Some people only want to see weakness so they can feel superior. Others use it to create doubt, to manipulate, or to gossip. A woman who understands her worth does not hand over her heart to just anyone. She brings her weaknesses before God, the only one who can truly heal, restore, and strengthen her. In His presence, she can be honest. In His presence, she can weep. In His presence, she can say, "Lord, I don't have it all together," and instead of condemnation, she will receive comfort. Instead of judgment, she receives grace. When a woman hides her weakness from the world, it doesn't mean she is pretending. It means she is protecting. She knows that growth is a sacred process. She knows that healing takes time, and she refuses to rush it just to prove a point. She is not trying to impress anyone. She is trying to become the woman God created her to be. That process requires privacy. It requires safe spaces. It requires quiet seasons. And in those seasons, she may appear composed on the outside while wrestling with her deepest fears and doubts on the inside. But God sees, God knows, and God is with her every step of the way. The world teaches us to wear our hearts on our sleeves, to overshare in the name of authenticity, to expose every struggle as a badge of honor. But wisdom teaches discretion. Discernment teaches boundaries. Maturity teaches that some things are best kept between you and God until you have the strength to share them with purpose, not pain. A woman who hides her weaknesses is not fake. She is faithful, faithful to her healing, faithful to her journey, faithful to the process that God has uniquely designed for her. She understands that her broken places are not for public display. They are for divine repair. There will be moments when she feels overwhelmed, when the burden of life weighs heavy, when insecurity creeps in and failure whispers lies. But instead of turning to the crowd, she turns to her Creator. She kneels in prayer, she opens her Bible, she finds strength not in public support, but in divine reassurance. That is where her true power lies, that is where transformation happens, and over time, those weaknesses become testimonies. What once was a place of shame becomes a story of redemption, but the story isn't shared too soon. It is shared when the wounds have become scars, healed, strong, and full of wisdom. Some people may misunderstand her silence. They may assume she has no struggles. They may think she's guarded or distant, but she is simply walking in wisdom. She has learned, often through pain, that the most fragile parts of her soul need protection, not exposure. She knows that there is a time to speak and a time to stay silent, a time to be open and a time to be still. She doesn't owe anyone a view into her private battles, because her worth is not defined by her weakness. It is defined by her resilience, by her faith, and by her identity in Christ. Eventually, there may come a time when she feels led to share her story, but by then it will no longer be a source of shame. It will be a beacon of hope. She will speak from healing, not hurt, from strength, not struggle. And her words will carry power because they were formed in silence, tested in private, and refined in faith. Until then, she walks quietly, confidently, and prayerfully, hiding her weakness not out of pride, but out of purpose. So yes, a woman should always hide her weaknesses, not because she is perfect, but because she is wise, because she understands the value of her soul, because she honors the process of healing, and because she knows that what God is doing in the quiet will one day shine in the light, not as a story of defeat, but as a testimony of divine strength. In the end, a wise woman understands that not everything about her life needs to be seen, known, or understood by everyone. There is profound strength in discretion, in silence, in sacred privacy, hiding her pain, her plans, her weaknesses, her heart, her growth. It is not about secrecy, but about spiritual protection. It is about allowing God to work in the unseen places, to shape her without the noise and pressure of the world's expectations. A woman who chooses to walk quietly, to shield her most vulnerable places, is not hiding in fear, but standing in faith. She trusts that the one who sees in secret will reward her openly. Her dignity is in her discipline, her power is in her peace, and her beauty is in the quiet strength that refuses to be shaken by the noise of the world. Let her move in silence, heal in private, and rise in God's perfect time, because when she does, she will not need to announce anything. Her life will speak for itself.